Words wield more power than we ever imagined. The subtle ways in which we talk can make a huge difference. Our language can shape, divide, and define societies. For example, you can use the word, these people are lost to us, these people have died, these people have been killed, and these people have been massacred. And each one conveys the same thing, but using different words evokes a different emotion in you. In this video, I'll take you through the different kinds of words being used to cover the current war going on in Palestine and how it shows the bias in the Western media present today. For the first example, I have here an article from The Guardian, and it says here, the hostages to be freed are women and children, and the Palestinian prisoners are also women and people aged 18 and younger. Both sides have confirmed. So we see a clear bias here. So the Israeli people are referred to as women and children and hostages, and the Palestinian people are referred to as prisoners, women and people aged below 18 and younger. People aged below 18 and younger are children. It's just there seems to be some kind of script being used by this news media where they particularly don't use children for this group. And also the other thing to note here is hostages for Israeli people and prisoners for Palestinian people. We know the people who were held in the Palestinian prisons were held without charge, many of them minors. Kudos to them. I mean, under public pressure and a lot of people tweeting about this bias in this coverage, they have changed this, and right now it doesn't read it this way. So I went back into when they were released, when the article was released on 23rd November, and I got this from there. Another example from the media outlet New York Times. Israel and Hamas have finalized an agreement to exchange at least 50 women and children held in Gaza for a pause in hostilities and the release of 150 women and minors imprisoned in Israeli jails. So in the same sentence, why use children in one place and minors the other? We all know using children evokes a very different feeling, a sympathizing feeling compared to minors, which doesn't evoke the same kind of feeling, even though it's referring to the same people, same age group. So another instance of biased media by CNN, where they were covering the hostages being exchanged or being released, is when they were showing the images of the Israelis being released, it was, people with names, basically humanizing them. And then it was Palestinian, it was just an image of the Palestinian people being released, and just the headline reading ex-prisoners were released. This is also a clear case of bias. Seeing images, seeing photos and the names beside it humanizes these people, like they're real human, you can relate to them, like you hear about their names. But just saying, this number, just putting a number, 39 prisoners were released, just putting a number to the name is not as humanizing. Even though some people might take it as humanizing, but putting people with their names properly, that is a better way to cover things. Or at least being consistent in covering both the things. Either put the same thing for both or don't put the names for both. In another case, this time by BBC News, is when they refer to this woman and her family being killed in Gaza. So they read Israel Gaza, Londoner loses 42 family members. So losers again is a loose term. It's one of the lowest ways to refer to somebody's family being killed or being massacred. So this is a common theme. So what has happened during the initial stages of the war, the way BBC were covering it, a lot of reporters from BBC complained about this kind of language being used. They were not happy with what was going on. They were feeling that as if they were betraying their fellow humans. So in an email shared with BBC News' international staff, journalists have pointed out that words such as massacre, slaughter, atrocities were frequently used in reference to Hamas attack, but Israel's actions were not described using similar vocabulary or outrage. From this, what has happened is the staff have taken some time off, while freelancers have been sacrificing their earnings by not turning up amid distress. It's causing them so much distress that they are reporting so unfairly that they have stopped working for this. So another thing that we notice here is Palestinians who are invited to speak in Western news channels are frequently asked to condemn Hamas. Do you condemn Hamas? So this is a common theme that we've seen, that do you condemn Hamas or do you call them terrorists? But Israeli guests are seldom asked to condemn their government's apartheid policies in the West Bank or its siege and bombardment in Gaza. They are never asked, do you condemn Israel or do you see Israelis as terrorists or causing acts of terror? This never happens in the Western media. So it is clear from what's going on is the media has a clear bias towards being pro-Israeli. Either it is an innate bias which they're not aware of, or it is being done on purpose, which is much more mischievous. So a recent report that has come out of the Plus 972 magazine saying that the bombing of power targets. So literally they are using targets specifically chosen in civilian areas to kill civilians. It's not even it's not, there's no curtain anymore that civilians are collateral damage. So they are using AI. So they are using AI to target specific civilian areas or specific civilian buildings, calling them as power targets. The bombing of power targets, according to intelligence sources who had first experience with its application in Gaza in the past, is mainly intended to harm Palestinian civil society, basically to target civilians, to create a shock that, among other things, will reverberate powerfully and lead civilians to put pressure on Hamas, as one source put it. So it is clear from all this that the purpose of the Israeli army, the oppression forces, is not to kill or finish Hamas off, but it is to target civilians and to cause maximum damage, as one of the politicians has put it already. And it also looks like there is a lot of propaganda around this, especially from the Israeli army, to push their narrative that they are the ones defending their lands, which is absurd because they are the ones who have occupied Palestine and the people around it, and they cannot defend themselves as being oppressors. The defenders here are the Palestinians, obviously. So all of this, the resumption of the bombardment again in the last 2 days, and the images coming out again, like the pause of 1 week just felt a bit, like we felt relaxed, like we could resume our normal life. The images stopped coming. I mean, not at a mass scale at least, but now the images have started coming again, and it's just pushing our humanities to a limit. Like, to what extent can we suffer this? To what extent will we just be observers over here? And I've decided that this is going to be my main theme for the channel for the upcoming future at least, and it has really motivated me to push and do this work and put it out there. And I would suggest you to share it with as many people as possible. So the reason I've started making these videos, I've put it up in my last video. You can check it out over here. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.